Courtney Spencer, Vice President of Advertising for the Portland Press Herald. Welcome to Maine Voices live stream. I'd like to say a very special thank you to our sponsor, HM Mason, who's been with us since the beginning of the Maine Voices live series. And thank you to our subscribers who are watching tonight. We love to provide free programming to our community, and HM Mason's investment dollars help us do this. If you'd like to subscribe or maybe leave a thank you tip, go to pressherald.com/support and show us some love. Now, to introduce you to tonight's host and guest. Glenn Jordan joined the Portland Press Herald in 1994 to cover the fledgling Portland Sea Dogs. Yes, that was 26 years ago. Since then, he's covered nearly every sport in Maine, from biathlon and curling to running and sailing. What many of you may not know, however, is that Glenn Jordan has many talents beyond sports reporting. He's a decorated pickleball player, an exceptional speller. In fact, many of his children have competed in the Maine State Spelling Bee, thanks, I'm sure, to his tutorial acumen. Glenn made a deft pivot this spring as he joined the business team to cover the pandemic's economic impact on our state. Glenn has been keeping us informed on topics such as MTI's initiative to preserve Maine jobs. As always, I'm in awe of the Press Herald journalist, and watching Glenn show his skills at reporting beyond the playing field is just one example. And Bill Green is the executive director of Maine's Sports Hall of Fame, but many of us know him from his long-standing television broadcast career. Bill, we were hoping to see you in person, but it doesn't feel that strange to have you in our homes on a screen. Please welcome Glenn Jordan and Bill Green.
Thank you. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Bill, for being here.
And we need some of that 70 decibel applause they're pumping into the football stadiums right there. Kind of went dead. Here's Glenn and Bill. Nothing.
Yeah. I know. That would be a good addition. So I know, Bill, you're probably going to be a little nervous staring into a camera.
Nervous. Very nervous.
I'd just like to get you at ease. And I know you've spoken with a lot of people. You've interviewed a lot of people over the years. Is there some question that you lead off with to put them at ease?
When I was in trouble when I was a kid, and I was talking to an athlete, I'd say, if it wasn't like after a game, give me a scouting report on yourself. As a ball player, give me a scouting report. How would you scout yourself?
All right. So tell me about the third baseman for the 1970
71 Rams.
71 Bangor High School Rams, captain of the baseball team.
Yep.
What was the detailed scouting report on young Bill Green?
Couldn't run, very intense, good arm, good glove, put the ball in play, and tried just as hard as any kid ever could. And my heart goes out to the kids this year that aren't playing their sports, because I was a mediocre student and stuff, and we put together a team at the end of my senior year that, we went undefeated, won the state. What a nice way to go out, and these kids aren't getting the chance. My heart goes out to them.
Yeah, no, I'm fortunate my kids have been through high school. I know your kids have been through that too, but that is a tough time. So you retired in November after 47 years.
Doing three things: executive director of the Maine Sports Hall of Fame. Yep. I'm a spokesman for the Freedom Boat Club, baby, and I write a column for Maine Magazine, which isn't as good as what you write, but I do the best I can.
Well, no, I know one of the reasons you retired was that you wanted to do a little more traveling. Were you able to get anything in
Not
before
really.
No.
No, I've been in the backyard. I've been very active this summer. I've biked 2,400 miles since March 15th. I'm selling raffle tickets for the Kentucky Derby for the Maine Sports Hall of Fame. There's the raffle number. Okay, get your Kentucky Derby raffle ticket. So I've learned to become a shameful promoter and a shameless promoter. But Pam and I, my wife, we get along great. Our daughter Emily has a child. She and her husband Andy had a child June 29th, Jack. And my son Sam and his wife Sarah live in Portland. So our bubble is the family and some Freedom boats.
Wow, very nice. What is there something you miss most about the grind, or maybe not the grind, but the business?
The newsroom. Like I was out for a bike ride this morning. I took a picture of a hazy sunrise, and it looked like Star Wars, just this orb in the sky. It didn't look like, the normal sun. And I sent a note to Keith and asked him, is this haze from the forest fires? And it indeed was. I later saw a tweet from the Press Herald on that. And I want to know stuff like that. I want to know everything. I want to know everything that's going on. So I miss the water fountain conversations.
Yeah. Huh. So now let's go back a little bit. So you're third baseman for Bangor. How do you, for Bangor High, how do you get into broadcast news?
I got fired from McDonald's. And so I needed a job. No, but it's true. I didn't have a mentor. I was going to night school at the University of Maine, continuing education. It's the equivalent today of having gone to a community college. I think those programs are great. And I was just trying to, bull my way through. And I was wrongly fired, but it's too long a story probably. And so I went home crying. My father said, I was 18 years old, and my father said, just go find another job. And so I went out to a place where they were loading trucks for $2.50 an hour. The guy said, we can't use anybody, but I know where there's a job that I didn't want. They only pay minimum wage. Channel 2's looking for a cameraman. I thought, oh, Hollywood, and went over and applied. And the guy that hired me, John Bonadio, still works there. He's like 24. He was the production director. And John's doing this interview with me. He goes, have you ever shot any film? He's a good friend of mine. And I go, I'm 18. I'm wearing, bell-bottom blue jeans, well, my dad's got a home movie camera. The interview was pitiful, but, they needed a warm body, and I was willing to work. And John, many years later, did say you were a quick learner. And geez, I was in the studio that Friday, which was St. Patrick's Day of '72, and just went to work for 47 years. And I did matriculate. I switched over to a day program at the University of Maine, got a degree, which I needed. I'm grateful to the University of Maine, and just kept going.
Now, before you give up on your McDonald's job, I understand you were a champion burger flipper. Is that right?
I could run 96. They had a big grill with a trough for the grease in the middle, and you'd put 48 on one side, 48 on the other. You'd do that in sets of 12. And Dick Ryan and Brad Halsey, with whom I played football in high school, Brad was the bun man, and Dick was the dress man. So I flipped 6 burgers down, put 6 more down, and Halsey would be putting lettuce on the Big Macs, and we had people, we were putting hamburgers out the door. And the Broadway McDonald's in Bangor, just before I got there, they was the largest producing McDonald's in the world in 1969. And I was there in 71 and 2. They built one on Union Street, but McDonald's was huge. So I was the meat man at McDonald's.
Wow.
And,
well, that's
had
something
the
to hang your
skills.
hat on.
Yeah.
No, are you still all right? Do you still grill in the backyard? I'm
the grill man.
You're the grill
I'm
man.
the grill man. My wife will go out and do something spectacular, marinate it, and give it to me, and I'll drop it on the grill. And when it's half warm, I'll flip it over. And she always, oh, honey, you did so well. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of brains to put meat on a fire. We've been doing it for 14,000 years. So.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right. So you started behind the camera.
Yeah.
How did you get around to the other side?
I begged every day. I went in, put me on. And I would always do the job. They would process film, and, it would go through all these chemicals, and it took probably something like 24 minutes plus the length of the film to process film. And that was valuable time to the newsmen. So I would watch the processor, which was just, just watching this thing go, and if the film got caught, a little bar would go up in the air, and I'd run in the newsroom and the film's caught, and they'd run in and try to save it. And I made every single intelligent mistake, and some, unintelligent ones too. I made every mistake imaginable, and some unimaginable. And I just showed up every day.
Yep.
Early.
I understand 47 years, 10 sick days?
Yeah. I was very proud of that. Like, I anchored weekend sports for 12 years, and I never missed a day. So, I mean, that's a dozen, that's missed weddings, that's missed family gatherings. Every Saturday and Sunday night at 6 and 11, I was in there, and nobody cared. But I mean, I think it makes you more necessary. If Lisa DeSisto were here tonight, instead of playing pickleball, we could ask a management type, but I guess, what's the word?
Yeah.
I'm out with the chickens, but no, I showed up. I always did my job. I was very proud of that.
So 47 years on the screen, well, 45 on the
Nancy.
screen, I guess. You've been recognized
45.
throughout the state. Pretty much anywhere you go, I'm guessing you're recognized.
Yep.
Also internationally, that is apparently you've.
No, I mean, if I went to, like if I go to Paris or something, or go to Europe, as I do very rarely, I've been recognized there a couple times and stuff. One of them was Paul Green, the sports attorney.
Oh.
I was walking through Charles de Gaulle, and here's Paul Green. Hey, Bill. Hey, Paul. But yeah, I mean, I've got a head the size of a pumpkin with white hair. I'm easily recognizable. But yeah, Disney World in California, and there's Mainers everywhere. Because the thing we produce the most of and the best is people. We raise these people, then they go off. So wherever you go, there are Mainers. You know why? They want good jobs, and so there's Mainers everywhere.
Does that ever?
Hey,
do you ever feel pressure though to sort of be on that you always?
Yeah.
You can't be a jerk. You can't be. You can't let your guard down, I guess, a little bit.
No, and I'm good. I was always good. Bud Levitt was a hero of mine. He wrote for the Bangor Daily News, did public television and stuff, and Bud was always good to me as a kid. And I knew Bud Levitt. I thought that was a big deal. And so I've had a couple of foibles here and there where I might have told somebody to kiss off, and I regret those occasions. But in general, I've gone out of my way. And my wife says I love the celebrity. I don't think my son liked it that much, being, he's got time with dad. My daughter kind of likes it too, My sister, Marcia, will introduce herself. Hi, I'm Bill's sister, So, it's funny. Some people kind of go with it and some people don't. I just try to pick my spots and try to be nice to people, because go the other way with it. If you don't have any talent like me, and let's say you meet 50 people a week, okay, that's 2,500 a year. And if you're on TV for 40 years, that's 100,000 people that you've met. So they might tune in because they know you, not because you're any good. And I think part of any success I might have had was that I knew people. Like Steve Piconi just went by. He was a 2:15 marathoner. He went by the chat feed. Stu Chase and I went to high school with, So it's interesting to see who's tuning in here tonight.
That's right. Now aside, well, you bike, you played baseball, you have run 5 marathons.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
What are you doing now to keep fit? Is it just biking?
I'm biking every day. Got up today in the dusk and went 16 miles, and I got my weight's down pretty good. I'm down 30 pounds from last year, and 22 or so from when I retired. So I'm in pretty good shape for an old fella. And I don't do anything well. I played golf pretty well. I got my handicap down to 5 back in the 70s. I didn't run very well. My PRs were, a 40-minute 10K, a 3:21 marathon. I ran a pretty good 10 miler, 68:31 at Bowdoin and back. And I will tell you that when someone lies about their marathon time and they say, "Oh yeah, that's right, I didn't run 250. I ran 3:21:57. I can tell you every marathon, and everybody else can too." So, see Sarah Hammond, who used to work with us in Baja, Arizona tonight. So, when somebody says what they ran a marathon, I always take note, because was Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, who ran for vice president? I thought he was a great guy. He lied about his marathon time. What did you run? 2 something. You don't run 2 something. Is that 2:08 or is that 2:59:59, right? So
right.
That's one thing you want to be real truthful about.
Right. So so you're in Bangor when you start out. How did you wind up in Portland?
They were looking for a guy to do recreational and outdoor sports. Up in Bangor, because of Bud, I thought, even though I'm not a great outdoorsman of this day, and I certainly wasn't then, the outdoor part was on the sports page of the paper. It was not in a special section like you guys have done. And so you'd read about the Red Sox, and then you'd read about hunting camp, or your son Nat's 34-inch striper or the 42-inch striper. There he'd be with a picture. So I thought outdoor sports, which then was what we called hook and bullet, was part of sports. And I got on the air in 75, the running boom was happening. So I started running, even though I was not a fast runner. And so, and I was kind of part of that. And so I do paddling stories. And I didn't want to do a lot of, I recognized early that hunting especially isn't a spectator sport. So it didn't look good on the 6 o'clock news. So I would try to do hunting stories, but they were soft, gentle ones where nothing got killed, And I would do anything else outdoors, running, sailing, all the great things we have to do. And because of George Plimpton and those things, I did do a lot of participatory stuff when I was young. But as I grew older, I just did stories on people who were doing those things. And my feature work became better than my sportscasting. Every sportscaster is a sportscaster, but I was doing some things with a hook, and I think I got noted for doing the outdoor stuff. I was not an organized producer like Strawberry, who's running this event tonight. I would spend the last minute trying to get that score. I'd be calling like pizza joints in Bucksport, trying to get the Bucksport, who might they play, Sears Sport score in basketball. And then I'd run on the set and present out of breath, and they were loaded with information, but they were poorly produced. And so, that was kind of my style. But my feature work was written and edited, so it was probably better. Yeah.
And first of all, you've been to pretty much every place in Maine. You've got a few more on your list?
Yeah, 6 to 8 townships, and I wanted to knock them down, and I waited too long and tried to do it. And there was a big rainstorm. We didn't make it to where we were going to try to make it. But the way to do that is by snowmobile. There are a lot of places up north in Maine that are more easily accessible by snowmobile. And so wait till the winter and jump on a trail and go. And I've got to knock them down. I don't know that I can actually do it, because when you think back, was I ever in T11, R13? I think I was, but I'm going to knock those down and say that I was.
I'm going to take your word for it.
I know I've been in every inhabited township. I've been in every inhabited township. Thanks,
All right.
George.
So how many gazetteers have you been through?
Oh, a bunch. Yeah, a bunch. And somebody I never interviewed was David DeLorme, because he was quite shy. I asked him, and he didn't want to do it. But an interesting Maine guy, great guy.
Huh.
Yep.
And over the years, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just saying, over the years, you've also interviewed not just sports people, but politicians, eight governors.
Yep.
What was the impetus for that? And
well, if you were elected to statewide office, you got on Bill Green's show, except for Tommy Andrews, who moved away. And then I called him one time, and he was like somewhere. I can't remember. He was running a national organization. And I said, when you're up, let me know. And we just never got together. But I did everybody on both sides and all that. And, my favorite, when I was a kid, John H. Reed was governor of Maine. And he always seemed to wear gray suits and black spectacle glasses. And so, he was alive then, of course. And I got a hold of him, and he was coming up that summer. He had a place in the Belgrade Lakes. And can I come to your camp? Because I like to do like you in front of your ping pong table, which we have to talk about in a minute, So, I'd love to come to your camp, but he was a pretty straight guy, So we did it at the Senator, which I love the Senator, been there for an interview. So we got a conference room. They were great. And the white wall, and we're all set up with lights. It's going to be a dog, but we'll do it. And down the hall comes John H. Reed. He's wearing a gray suit and black spectacles, and I first saw him dressed like that in like 1968. And this was probably 2006. And he hadn't changed a bit. And, and my favorite story from John H. Reed was Clinton Clausen was governor, who I don't really remember. He died. And John got a phone call on his Fort Fairfield potato farm at 2 a.m. And I believe it was Clinton Clausen's press secretary. And John told me that when he answered the phone and the man identified himself, John knew instantly that Clinton Clausen must have died and that he was governor of Maine. And the Maine State Police put together a relay of state policemen. I assume down through the Haynesville woods, because there was no 95 then. I think the year's 1960 or 61. And John Reed was sworn in at the State House, the next day. And so that's the kind of story I told. I didn't have the big stories like you're writing over there in the business section.
Right.
I just had, John H. Reed, and the state police relaying him to Augusta.
Much like Theo Epstein getting Doug Mirabelli
There
to
you
Fenway
go.
Park to catch Tim Wakefield.
That's right.
Absolutely.
He jumps out of the car wearing his uniform and runs out and catches Wakefield. Yeah.
Right. All right. So succeeding John Reed was Ken Curtis, right?
Great guy.
Do you remember anything? What did you?
Yeah, he had funny hair. He had gray hair,
Okay.
and he kept it real short. And Ken's a great guy, so I like these people. And he had a softball team that was very competitive. Tim Wilson was on it. A lot of guys in his cabinet. He had a young cabinet. There was a Camelot that kind of followed JFK in Washington. But to me, I had Jock McKernan here. Jock McKernan was an all-state basketball player. He had beautiful hair, and he'd stick that left-handed J. He was an all-state basketball player, and he'd run down the court, and his hair would bounce up and down. So after the Beatles came, we all had Jock McKernan hair, kind of like I'm wearing tonight. But now my hair's turned gray, and it's coarse, like Ken Curtis, and my hair sticks out all over the place. And so my making fun of Ken Curtis when he was young has now, I've gotten back to me because I can't keep my hair doing what I want to do. I used to, it was perfect there for about 20 years.
I just let mine go. I don't try to.
There you go. See.
There you go. And
Bob Steele.
who was
Bob Steele. Well, Bob Steele. Bob Steele was the guy I replaced at Channel 2, and he was as ethical a person as there ever was. One of the mentors of mine that he really helped me a lot. And he went to the Poynter Institute and did a lot of work with ethics. He was quoted in a lot of national trades because he played high school and college golf with Dan Quayle. Isn't that interesting? He was from Huntington, Indiana.
Wow.
And Bob went off and did great things. And I'm really honored that, to just know the guy and having worked with him in that original gang at Channel 2.
All right. Any other gubernatorial memories? Jim Longley or James Longley?
Yeah.
Joe Brennan.
All of them. Joe Brennan, what a great guy. Jim's gone. So, but Jim was a fighter. He was a battler, and he wrote something called the Maine Management and Cost Survey. And my wife's uncle is the next name on that thing, and it is, how would you run government if you ran it as a business? And nobody really wanted to cut any government spending, so Jim came out with his book. They did the press conference. Everybody walked away yawning, thanks, Jim. And he got kind of angry and ran for governor with the Maine Management and Cost Survey as his guidebook. And within 5 to 7 years, not just because he got elected governor, but all of those cost-saving measures were probably put into effect. So Joe Brennan, what a good guy. Cargo piers, I can't remember, cargo piers, cargo ports, something fish packing sheds, we need jobs. Joe Brennan, and you think, well, he's going to be, coming from the Democratic side, he's going to want to be giving money away, but he wanted jobs, jobs, jobs. But he also said something that I'll never forget, that you measure a government by the way it treats its poorest citizen. So it's a pleasure to have been around all these people. And, Margaret Chase Smith, 1972, I started Channel 2. She's running against Bill Hathaway, who's going to beat her for the Senate. And Margaret Chase Smith didn't accept campaign contributions. So she's not doing any ads. She's tired. I don't think she wants to run. And she ran, I think, because Bob Monks ran against her in the primary. So she's running one more time. And she goes to Channel 2, and I'm the cameraman. And they're going to have a press conference there. So I swept the whole studio, washed down all the cables. It really looked nice. I even got a couple of bucks to go out and get some donuts. I met her at the door, and I said, Senator Smith, I got some donuts if you'd like one. And she just never looked more tired in her life, on her way to her one defeat. But imagine me being 18, 19 years old, meeting Margaret Chase Smith. And since I'm ranting, Ed Muskie, right? Muskie's coming to the studio, and he had lost New Hampshire by the time I started. So he's on the way down. But we thought Ed Muskie was going to be president of the United States, and it would have been a good thing if he was. So he's come to the studio, same thing, got it all cleaned up. The Globetrotter advanced man, Tex Harrison, who just died, he coached the Washington Nationals till about 2 years ago. He comes to the station to do this, and hey, the Globies are coming to the Bangor Auditorium, right? And I had to interview him because they had Muskie coming in. So they give the kid, get this guy out of the way. I'm walking down the hall with Tex Harrison, and Muskie comes in the door. Everybody's in the studio. And I was so, these two important Americans had to meet, right? So I said to Harrison, Tex, I'd like you to meet Ed Muskie. And I decided not to be formal. I decided to be informal. This is Ed Muskie. Ed, this is Tex Harrison. And Tex said, Ed, you're pretty tall. You must have played some basketball. And I don't think he knew who Ed Muskie was. And Ed looked pretty tired by then too. But I got to meet Ed Muskie. Think of that! Yeah. What an honor!
Wow. And I understand a former governor uses you in a story now and then on the campaign trail.
Angus and I don't look at all alike, but he says that a kid came up to him at the jetport, asked him for an autograph, and when he signed it, the kid steps back in disappointment. And Angus says, "What's wrong?" And the kid said, "Oh, I thought you were Bill Green." And it always gets a big laugh because Angus is 15 times my stature, and but hey, if they're talking about you, that's good, I guess. I hope sometimes.
And let me see now. I guess we can get off the politicians for a while. How did it?
Too many of those.
Right. How about in sports figures? I think one of the things you said was over the years you met 10,000 nice people and about 20 jerks or so. Was anybody in particular that or
you print guys, you really latch onto the negatives.
That's what we do. You can't let it go. I left it to the end.
No,
but
the guy that Glenn and I have actually talked about this. We went out fishing a couple of weeks ago and talked about this. And there is a fisherman in his family, his son Nat. Let's see. And the guy that there were a couple of guys. My first spring training, I went with Bruce Glazier, and Bruce was supposed to shoot for me, and I was supposed to shoot for him. And I got there, and there's Yaz, 1978. Out there, it's the first day of spring training, nothing's happening. So I run out with my film camera, and they're all doing like sit-ups, and Yaz is up back. He wasn't having a smoke, but he wasn't putting a lot of effort into it either. And I go out and put the camera down, so I get a shot of Yaz on the ground. I want this low shot because he's kind of laying out, kind of semi-doing, and he goes, "Get that effing camera the F out of my face." And I, "Oh yes, Mr. Yastrzemski," and Dewey Evans was next to him. And because you had great access then, and Dewey Evans goes, "What do you always got to be so mean for? The guy's just doing," and he was yanking Yaz's chain, and I was loving it. And Yaz was kind of, being mean. And I don't know those guys. I was just a kid there with a camera, but it was a thrill. It was a thrill for me. And I would try to do whenever you can do, the major league stuff. It helps your credibility, even though I don't know that I ever did very much locally. But I had a similar experience with Jim Rice. Jim Rice, I thought he was a really negative person, tough guy to deal with. And I was doing a story on Billy Swift, who had pitched the night before. And I went up to Jim and said, Jim, could I, Bill Green, Channel 6 in Portland, doing a story on Billy Swift, who pitched last night. He's from South Portland. Could you give me 15 seconds on what it's like to hit against him? F you. Geez, thanks, Jim. Give me a not today, or maybe after I hit. And he never gave me an interview. And sometimes I kind of ragged him about it a little bit. I asked him for a few too many interviews after that, just to be kind of a jerk. But hey, Jim, you got a second for an interview? Nothing. And so later it was fun to me, and I don't take that personally. I'm just a kid trying to get an interview. He's just a ball player trying to hit 300 and get to the Hall of Fame. But it was interesting to me how they kind of promoted him, all this stuff. He was trying to make the Hall of Fame, which he just barely did. And I watched that with great curiosity, because I'm sure there are other reporters, and it's the Baseball Writers of America who get votes, right?
Right.
I don't know that that's the way it should be, but that's the way it is. And I was wondering if he'd get enough votes to get in. And I was kind of glad he did, because to me, he passed the standard of people feared him in the baseball game for 7, 8, 9 years. He was unbelievable.
Yeah.
But my impression is different, and that's kind of what my life is like. Like one interview with John H. Reed. A few minutes here and there at the ballpark. I mean, I went to Fenway a lot because until '93 I was a sportscaster. And I don't know if people know that. From '75 to '93 I did sports.
Right. So after you get out of sports and do more afield things, ever get lost in the Maine woods? Ever get
Oh, geez.
have
Yeah.
some times where it's,
Yeah.
uh-oh.
Yeah. The worst time was we're going up to Lobster Stream. This is how I became a Maine guide. We're going up to Lobster Stream I'm not good at recalling names while I'm talking 100 miles a minute. Dan Levine, I believe, owns the Maine Guide Fly Shop in Greenville. Great old guide. In fact, I used to hold this big brook trout up at the beginning of my show. He had drifted by me on I think it's the East Outlet, and gave me the fly. I was fishing with Bob Brown, and I caught that fish on a fly that was given to me by an expert. So, which is probably the only reason I caught it. And the whole thing was messed up. I called up to the game warden headquarters, said, where do I rent a motor up there? And I'm just killing myself with names. And the warden sergeant said, I just confiscated a motor off a guy. You can use this motor. And Dan left a square stern canoe at his shop. We picked that up. We went to the warden headquarters and picked up the motor. Pat Dorian is the warden. Pat, I'm going to get you for this. And there's no gas can and gas hose with it. So I knew the guy who ran the Arctic Cat snowmobile shop in Greenville. So I got him to open up on a Sunday or whatever. It was a Sunday, maybe it was a Monday. It was a Monday, and got a gas can from one of the wardens, filled up with gas, and up we go to Lobster Stream to put in. We load everything up, put the motor on the canoe, pull the cord, nothing. Right, this thing's all rusted out. It hasn't run in years, And so my photographer really wants to go, and we're supposed to, go like 8 or 9 miles up Lobster Stream to where he's got a camp where he's moose hunting. And so, well, let's paddle. So we start paddling down Lobster Stream, which is north, and we go 6 or 7 miles. And the whole day was late, and I wanted to do something else, and but I didn't take control. So make a long story short, now we're out in the willy wags. We're not lost. I mean, I know where I am. I just don't know where the meetup is. And back in those days before cell phones, if you didn't make the meetup, you didn't make the meetup. They didn't come looking for you. So I get serious then. And, we stop an hour before sunset. We've got tents. We got everything we need. We set up camp. But then we get up in the morning and the photog wants to have breakfast. I think, no, we got to go. But I wasn't forceful enough. We have breakfast. We pull into Dan's camp about an hour after sunrise, hour and a half, 2 hours after sunrise. They're gone. They've gone moose hunting. So now what do? You stand in camp all day, right? Yeah. And then he doesn't come back. It gets dark again, right? So now I'm thinking he's got a moose and, went out through Chesuncook Lake where Lobster Stream goes. He's not going to be back till next week. He doesn't, I didn't make the meetup. He doesn't care. He might call me on Wednesday or Thursday, say, hey, what happened? But, we might be here for a few days. It's October 10th. If it snows, I got trouble. And I know Crystal Canny from Channel 13 is going to come up and find me just so she can do the story on me covered with snow on Lobster Stream. So, or Kim Block or somebody, right? So actually, though, they came back about an hour after sunset. And his sport was a warden. It's too long a story. And they couldn't get the motor started, but we could leave it with them. So we shot some stuff of campfires and cooking and moose hunting interviews and paddled out the next day. But after that, I got serious, got some training. And I don't guide, but I do have the patch. So that's how I became a Maine guide. It was a terrible foible.
All right. Well, I think we're going to go to some audience questions. Actually, I do have one other question.
Oh, no.
You did get paged one time, right? You were snowmobiling. You got an emergency page at one point. Can you tell me what happened?
I'm up in Baxter. My son Sam's about 7 years old. We're carrying pagers, and my wife Pam would never page me up north. It's just what I'm out of. She runs the family anyway. She doesn't need me bunging things up, right? My pager went off, call home. So this is bad. This is bad news. And it was a kind of a spring Marchy day. You could take snowmobiles on the access road. It was soupy. It wasn't a very good story. So let's book for home. We had a bag phone that wasn't working up there. So we drive into Millinocket, and I go to the payphone. I call home. My son Sam wants to go across the street to Jake's house. Right? Not good, Sam. So I go into McDonald's to get a couple of cups of coffee. And I said, and this is it's probably 94. Sam's got a big hair gum chewer behind the counter, right? And she goes, may I help you? And I said, yeah, a couple of coffees, please. And she says, I don't know, 84 cents or $1.40. I went, no, 2 coffees. She went senior discount. So that was also the day I got my first senior discount because I had white hair, right? Thanks, lady.
Right.
All
right. Well, let's go to some audience questions. Mary Dumont says,
I know Mary Dumont. She goes to my church.
Well, she says I'm sure it's hard to narrow it down, but do you have a favorite sports memory?
No.
No. Okay. Like, for example.
Wait, let's go. Let's listen. When you came and watched the
Jayhawks worked their hoops.
Right. She's a big Kansas fan. Gave me a T-shirt, and that was not my favorite sports memory, Mary.
All right. So Walt Allen wants to know because he interviewed you 30 years ago along with his son, and every time since you've remembered his name. Yeah, that's right. And how do you do that? Why do you have you?
Well, I mean, he was playing fantasy baseball when you did it with a pencil. All right, that was a fantasy baseball, rotisserie league baseball is called, because those guys met, the guys that founded fantasy sports met at, I think it's La Rotisseria in New York, and did it with pencil. And they had a nationally, he's a doc, and they had a bunch of doctors mostly, and they did it with pencils. Stay up all night, and you could only make changes on Sunday and 2 changes a week, and
Well, Walt is an original Sea Dogs ticket holder fan, and he I got to know Walt and Doug, his seatmate, quite well in the early years, and just a wonderful guy.
See, that must have been a great experience for you to know Charles Johnson at 22 or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Bud Similjan wonders if you have a camp, what approximate area, and besides napping, what are your favorite outdoor/camp activities?
In the wintertime, my favorite outdoor activity is going inside to warm up. No, we don't have a camp because I can't repair this house that I'm in. And so we have a house with a pool. And I spend a lot of time in my backyard, which has, Bud Levitt once said, there's more beauty in my backyard than there is in the whole province of Labrador as far as I'm concerned. And I believe that. But no, I get around Maine a lot. I bum on people's camps. We're going up to Namacana in a couple of weeks, and I have a place nearby that I can hunt, and I fish out on the bay in your Freedom Boats.
Freedom Boats.
Don't forget to get your Maine Sports Hall of Fame raffle ticket. And Mary Farnham right there used to be a photographer for the Press Herald.
That's right, Mary. So Mary wants to know, were you ever asked to leave Maine for a job out of state? And if so, why didn't you take it?
It's funny because I could never get a good enough job. I mean, I thought I'd end up in my dream job would be doing Monday Night Football. And then, I thought I wanted to go to a major market, but I got a job offer in Rochester, New York, and in Augusta, Georgia, which wasn't even a full-time sports job. And then I got a job right after I met Pam, and it just didn't seem right. So, by the time I got job offers, I got 3 doing sports, and I got 1 other job to go do something that was, I'll tell a Pam story. So at one time in the 90s, can I tell this story? Yeah, because those people are all gone. I was offered a chance to be a news director and an anchor in Bangor, and they were going to double 2 salaries, pay me a lot of money to go back home and, be a big shot. And I asked Pam, she said, have a nice time. I mean, come on, where's the respect, So it just, the reason I got done doing sports was I got married in 86. I'd been on the air 5 years, and Pam and I didn't have whole days off except for vacations for 12 years. So the 2 kids were born, and it was just time to be home more nights and weekends. And so I asked if I could become a feature reporter. They made me a one-man band and had me specialize in outdoor stuff. And so that's how I became, the outdoor guy. And they were doing a thing called Color Me Green. I did some documentary work. And so then when Tegna bought the station, which they didn't do, Gannett bought the station. And Gannett was second cousins with Guy Gannett, I'm told, back in 200 years ago. So Gannett, which bought Channel 6, was no relation to Guy Gannett, who owned the Press Herald Channel 13 and some other stations. So they wanted to look local. And so they wanted to do a local show. And I was kind of expendable. I could do features. I'd done half hours. And a guy named Steve Thaxton picked me, hired the executive producer Becky Smith, and we were off.
Martha Gifford wants to know. Oh, and I guess I'm supposed to remind people that you can write your questions in the Q&A thing.
Okay.
Not in the
chat.
chat.
The chat thing. Hit the chat and write the question. Yep.
Yeah. She asks, after all your travels around the state, what changes have you seen in the environment, both positive and negative?
I've seen a lot. I mean, urban sprawl is a big problem. And so I am on the Friends of Baxter State Park, and we were talking tonight about how that becomes increasingly important. Sprawl is important. I think viewscapes are important. I think a lot of the wind power has taken some of the views away. There's much less access to land. So the land for Maine's future, those bonds of 50 million here and 100 million there, I think they're very important. They're going to become increasingly important. So our public lands, I think, are increasingly important. I see a lot less hunting and the traditional stuff. I see a lot more recreational use of the outdoors. And I think the outdoors is very, very important. And I didn't take a stand on the power line, the power grid. I thought it was interesting how the governor, kind of worded that where it would lower greenhouse emissions long term. But I was offered a chance to work for it and didn't take it. So that I was kind of in the middle on that. But I hate to see the loss of wild land, of backcountry. I read the Beach to Beacon twice, never very fast. I was pretty old by that time. And yes, I shot baskets with Bill Cohen. And not only did I bowl, I did a TV show called Candlepin Challenge with a guy named Charlie Mylan for several years. So, yeah.
All right.
I don't bowl very well.
Margot, who is the person you most wish you could have interviewed?
Oh, there are a lot of them. David DeLorme comes to mind. Yeah. I never got a one-on-one with Stephen King. He mentioned me in a book. We kind of know each other, but he, I was never able to get a one-on-one. He did a very nice goodbye. Am I going away? But there are people that I can't think of right now that were on the list that I wanted to do interviews with, and Tom Andrews. I mean, if I'd hooked up with him, I would have done that. There are a lot of interesting people out there, and I like the younger people that were coming along. There are a lot of younger people. Like some of my favorites are the Mallet brothers. I love the Mallet brothers, and there's just some cool people out there doing cool things in Maine.
If you could visit your favorite place in Maine in your favorite season, where would you most like to go?
I don't have a favorite place, but we're getting into fall, so. I'm going to plug them again. I'd never done this before. I took a Freedom boat through the Songo Locks the other day, and I thought, wouldn't this be great at peak foliage? So Namacanta, I'm going up there to fish. That'll be peak foliage. Hancock Point's beautiful. Aroostook County right now, perfect. What a beautiful place. If you've never been to Aroostook County, get up there and check it out. It's a beautiful place, and they're wonderful people. So I don't have a favorite place in Maine.
All right.
The rivers, the oceans,
Now, you mentioned Bud Levitt earlier. Did you go out on stories with him, or it was just mostly in the newsroom that you interacted?
I'd bump into him the way I bump into you. So you kind of know people in the media. And Bud knew my dad. Bud played golf with my dad. Bud was kind of like, I'm kind of like Bud in that way. Bud knew everybody. He'd write about him in his column. And one guy said there were only two ways he was going to get his name in the newspaper: the obituary and Bud Levitt's. And I think that's a great way to be. And he had characters that would appear at his sporting camp, and I think he did 5 columns a week. Think of that, 5 columns a week. And he had Bendy McElbow, and that meant they were up to their hunting camp drinking. A little when Bendy McElbow showed up. So
let's see, who else. What do you want to achieve in your retirement?
I want to do just things that I want to do in retirement. I'm trying to just have a nice time. I'm trying to, I do want to travel. I'm doing things that I want to do. I enjoy the Maine Sports Hall of Fame enormously. I'm really loving boating and getting out on the bay. If they throw me out, I'm going to buy a boat. And, if and I'm enjoying writing. I also write for the notes, the Yarmouth Shopping Notes. So that's a lot of fun. I write a lot of satire and sarcasm in that. So it's not necessarily true, but it's done by deadline time.
All right. Bob Steele wants to know, he says he remembers playing golf with you and your dad.
Yep.
And of course, turns out that Bill's dad played golf, was a regular golf partner with my grandfather on the Bangor Municipal Course. Ray Jordan,
Yeah.
who taught me to hit the ball over second base.
There you go. When you hit a golf ball or when you hit a baseball?
No,
did
when
you
I
mean
hit a
stay in
golf ball.
the box, or do you mean swing straight through at the target? Okay. Yeah, they had all these swing thoughts. Yeah.
Right. He knew I could play baseball, but he was trying to teach me to play golf.
The point of that, though, Glenn, is we were out fishing, and you said my grandfather played golf at Bangor Muni, and I thought, Jordan, oh my goodness, I wonder if that's Ray Jordan. And you said his name before I did, but I would have said his name. And Maine is a big, small town. It doesn't, it doesn't matter where you are. We have connections, and don't say anything bad about anybody, because you're probably talking to their cousin, or in my case, their grandson. So, I mean, we're interrelated. Can I improve? No, I can't. I was going to improve my lighting in the background, but
no. Well, Bob wants to know if you have a fun memory of a golf story that you reported over the years.
No. I hope he's not suggesting one of him. I remember Bob playing in the Paul Bunyan Amateur Golf Tournament, which was a great event. And the thing I admired about him was he had a good round going. Imagine a sportscaster who could actually do something in sports, right? And he got to about 15. He hit a bad shot, and he went wild. And that was a funny memory that I'll never forget. But discretion tells me that I shouldn't tell the story. But
okay, all right.
Whirling Dervish comes to mind.
All right, William Cassidy. Oh, this is an interesting question. You've given a number of commencement addresses throughout the state.
I think Bill Cassidy is the president of USM,
of
Southern Maine Community College.
Okay.
And I actually have an honorary doctorate, Glenn. Can you imagine that, from the University of Maine at Farmington?
Wow.
Yeah, I'm very honored by that.
Dr. Bill.
Dr. Bill. I've spoken at in Eastport. I've spoken in York County Community College. I've done Husson, the Portland campus. I've done the School of Broadcasting at Husson. Help me. I've done
so what's the message?
Eastern Maine Community College.
Yeah.
So I'm a community college. I never went to a community college because they had continuing education when I was there. But I was the kind of guy that needed that. And the message is, you got your degree. I don't want to hear any more excuses. Go to work hard. Community college people are kind of my kind of people, and they're great people. And a lot of times I write a column every year. Like, you went to Dartmouth, Glenn, and I admire that greatly. If you can go to Bowdoin, go to Bowdoin. But if you're just going to, I'll name a couple of places. If you're going to Salve, go to UMaine. UMaine cares about you. UMaine and the campus, they care about, this state. They care about you. You're going to make friends that last a lifetime. Rather than just go off somewhere because you're too good. Maine needs you. Maine wants you. Go here, get educated, and make Maine a better place. Because, hey, with COVID, they're moving in by the droves, and we as I'm fond to say, we're probably 30 years behind the times and 20 years ahead of the rest of the country. But we are. There's a magnificent quality of life here. But as Joe Brennan said, we need jobs. Cargo ports, fish piers, potato packing sheds, or whatever he said. And Stuart Jason has asked about a woman I worked for. Margot Cobb was one of the first TV station managers in the country, and she was a person that made a station with very low budget, workable and profitable, and she also was the first woman to own a NASCAR race car. She put a NASCAR team together and went off and raced on the NASCAR circuit for a year. She didn't drive it, but she had a driver. But she was the first woman to own a NASCAR race car, which gives her a place in America's American sports history.
Now, you once raced a stock car, right, for a story?
Yeah, back then, I said his name earlier. Who was George Plimpton was the participatory guy, and you were expected to participate. So, I was the track announcer at Speedway 95 in Herman, and I'd make $50 on Saturday to go out, and then I later did the program book, and if everything went well, I could make another $100 doing that. And they had put together a media race, and they were all in street stock, which was the lowest class, and I was in the modified class. They gave me a modified car, the fastest car, but I drew the inside of the fifth row. And my brother drove a stock car. I had a brother named Fred who was a Bangor firefighter, and he loved auto racing, and he was a blue collar guy, and I didn't know how to drive a car. I was making sure my hair was combed right, and he's telling me do this and do that. The last thing he says, "Don't touch them binders." And I said, "Freddie, what's a binder?" He says, the brakes. And with that, I'm off. Don't touch the brakes. So they waved the checkered flag, and off we go. And they're all going about 30. They all drift to the outside. I come out of turn 2, and I stood on it, right? I'm going about 80 into the third turn. And what did my brother tell me? Don't touch them binders. I went off the top of the third turn into the fourth turn, down through a pile of dirt, and just out of the flag stand, smashed up this guy's car. I think his name was Ken Bonis. I feel awful. He probably had $5,000 in the car. I didn't have any money. I was making, I think I was making 135, $150 a week. No, I'm making 11,000 when I got on the air in 75. So I can't, I smashed up the guy's stock car. They had me come present the Sportsman of the Year award to the guy. So he got a trophy for his $3,000 in repairs that he had to do himself all winter in his stock car. And I got a speeding ticket on the way to the banquet. So, it's just one mistake after another. But I was having a great time. Great time.
Beth Lively says you're a natural storyteller. I think everybody can see that. Did you learn or inherit this from someone?
Yeah, my dad. My dad was a storyteller, and sitting around with Ray Jordan and Pepper Mooney and Phil Ward at the golf course, they swapping stories. And he was a railroad brakeman, worked on the B&A, a lot of time, in the front end and the caboose, and I'm sure he actually did have a great knack for storytelling. And he also set me on a course in a way. We watched Super Bowl III down at our camp at Jacobuck Pond. The family had a camp, which we sold many years ago. And after the Jets won, my father pointed to the TV set and said, "That box is an amazing thing," because I could never afford to go to that game, but that box took me there. And so when I did stories, like I can't ski very well, but I did stories up on Sugarloaf and Sunday River shooting down, not at the lodge shooting up. And when I did a story on canoeing, I tried to be in the canoe. And when I did a story fishing, I tried to be fishing. And I try to use the camera to take people there. And I think that's a good way to do broadcasting, because it's like you mentioned about how the outdoors change. One way it's changed is people don't have the time. They don't go on week-long windjammer cruises anymore. They don't go paddle the Allagash, and then you'd think more people would be up there doing a week on the Allagash. Fewer people are, because of the way that we live our lifestyles now. And so, but yet when something comes up about the Allagash that people might want to vote on or argue about, or windmills, nobody's been to that corridor, that area where the corridor is. People are fighting passionately over that because it's in our hearts and souls and mind. That back country, that outdoor country is in our hearts. It's part of who we are as Mainers. And so it's good that we fight for it over that, and it's good that we protect it. I'm ranting.
That's okay. You're allowed to. What's retirement for if not,
right,
being the old guy who rants?
This is a great format that we can rant.
Nancy Kinney wonders whatever happened to Katahdin Woods and Waters National Monument, and how do you feel about that?
Well, it happened. So, I was sensitive to the locals that I didn't think wanted it very strongly. And one thing I didn't like about it was when they announced they were going to do it, and they said, "We're going to have this done on the day that the National Park Service turns 100. And so all that arguing, all that stuff, both sides, all the, sensitive reporting and trying to cover both sides on, and they accepted it on the 100th anniversary of the National Park Service. It was kind of a done deal. And I don't feel good about that, but I'm fine with the park. It protects the woods and waters. I've been up there with Pam We've hiked up there. We've climbed a small mountain that gives you a great view of Katahdin, and someday they'll go there and say how great that this was protected. And I'm all for land conservation, so I'm glad it's there. And I was not against it. As a reporter, I tried not to take sides anyway. But if you go back and look at the first days, it went just exactly as it was planned from day one. So interesting.
All right. Joe Morrissey wonders, what is the most unique sport you've ever covered?
Oh man, all those bocce sports. I don't know. There are. I don't know. Glenn, what's the most unique sport you've covered?
Well, I think biathlon is just a unique sport in that it combines different aspects of different sports. It's a what other sport are you running around with live ammunition, I guess?
Right. I like it though because it's a natural thing to do. I mean, if you were in the Norwegian army, skiing and shooting made sense. So it's like the marathon. They ran, Phidippides ran a marathon distance, and I think that distance is Wembley Stadium to Buckingham Palace to Wembley Stadium from the 1980 Olympics. So, but it's a fixed thing. But there's a reason that we run a marathon, or there's a reason that you do biathlon. There's a reason that you do the Iditarod. There's the example I'm looking for. That guy took the medicine to Nome. So I like sports that better than cornhole. The reason is to have a beer.
There you go. All right. The last question. I guess we're down. We're near the end here.
I'm ashamed.
Let's see.
What is the most recent book?
Yeah, sure. Or will you ever write a book about your career?
I'm thinking about it. I don't know. It would be stuff like this. It would be bathroom reading. It just, I don't have much to say. I don't think. I'm kind of a middle of the road guy, kind of going through life, trying to work hard and trying to raise my family. And this will prove it. The book I'm reading is I don't know the name of it. I think it's Joe Namath, My Life in 4 Quarters, because Mike DeVito up in Hamden, who played in the NFL for so long, he has a wonderful podcast called 3 Point Stance, and he had Broadway Joe on his podcast. And Broadway Joe is the guy I was watching with my dad. Broadway Joe later endorsed Johnny Walker Red Scotch, which I drank during my more formative years because Broadway Joe recommended it. So I'm reading Broadway Joe's biography. That's not heavy reading. My favorite book is the Lewis and Clark expedition, Undaunted Courage, which skip the first 150 pages while they're loading the raft and then go on that trip, because that was a trip. So.
Wonderful.
8 o'clock.
Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And what was the Maine Hall of Fame? What are there's raffle tickets?
Oh, that's right. Thank you. Maine Sports Hall of Fame / raffle. Win a trip to the Kentucky Derby. Wow, huh? $100 a ticket, 250 limit, a trip to next year's Derby. And if there are problems with that, it'll be the 2022 Derby. And we need that for our scholarship fund. We give out $5,000 scholarships every year to Maine high school students.
All right. Well, thank you again, Bill, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you everyone for attending.
If you see Lisa DeSisto, tell her I said hi.
Yes, I expect I'll see her on a pickleball court at some point. All right. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks everybody for tuning in.